Hey everyone, today on the Fireside podcast, we're joined by James Beard nominated chef, best-selling author, and philanthropist Jordan Wagman. Jordan, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This is fun. And
It
your
is
hair,
fun.
I saw you fixing your hair as we were
I
coming on.
had to.
I assure you it looks much better than
Jordan, you're too kind. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So yeah, Jordan is a lot of things, chef, best-selling author. So today we're going to be kind of talking about a few of those points as connected to the Muskoka. So I guess kicking things off here, Jordan, Muskoka. I think you grew up in the city. You moved up to the country. What do you love about Muskoka, and what brought you up there?
I grew up going to Camp Tamarack, which is now, as of last year, is closed and it was sold. It's located off of 117, just east of Highway 11. So for what, 18, 19 summers, I went up there every summer. So Bracebridge, Huntsville, that whole area was always, I was always drawn to it. I became a canoe tripper back then. So I would lead kids on canoe trips and I would go out, 30 days of summer, 40 days of summer, whatever it was. And I was in the bush and I was creating food for kids. And, as I was falling in love with being in the country, I was falling in love with cooking for people, especially over an open fire. So, my whole life, I knew that I would one day end up, I didn't know when. And my wife and I separated and my children gave me their blessing to move out of the city. And that was going to be 3 years ago.
Wow. Yeah, that's so cool. No, I have never gone portaging myself, but it's
Missing
something that I've
out.
always wanted to do. I know, and I've got a lot of friends that, fortunately enough, are equipped and well prepared to do that sort of activity, and they've gone a lot of times to Algonquin Park and all that kind of great stuff. So I have the ability to do it, and it's something I need to do and just go have some fun out
It's
in the Canadian
something
wilderness.
that we were joking earlier about rite of passage, right? Moving to like offline. We were joking about it, and the truth is, living up here, being a part of the Muskoka community, I do believe it's kind of rite of passage about going and sleep in a tent and connecting and understanding what it truly is all about. And
Yeah.
that differs from person to person, but I still love it today.
For sure. Yeah, no. And I guess when you're looking at your winter, your summer, are there any things, because it sounds like canoeing something that's been a long-standing part of your life, but is there any things that you are really drawn to? Have you tried ice fishing before? Anything like that?
It's funny. I really don't like the cold. The cold and I
Ah,
don't get along really well. And so it's funny that I moved up to Muskoka because it's cold and there's a lot of snow. But I haven't yet engaged in those activities. I do have every intention. I would like to try a lot of the outdoor sports that are available to us up here. And I just haven't. I've been so busy acclimating and building a business, and I'm 4 weeks removed from a hip replacement now. So it's like, there's just been so many things that have gone on. But yeah, I have
mhm.
every intention. Maybe next winter is ice fishing. I'm not sure about ice camping. So, but ice fishing for sure.
The great thing, so I went to school, and I know we were talking about this up in Northern Ontario, and we spent a lot of time ice fishing. But the thing is, the nice thing about ice fishing is it seems a little counterintuitive, but it can be very warm. So
Right.
you get these nice insulated shacks and everything. So it's a nice,
Right.
healthy bridge into that outdoor
Yeah.
lifestyle
No,
piece.
I agree. I
Yeah.
think it too is probably a rite of passage living
Oh,
up here.
yeah.
So no,
That's
I,
it.
I would like to engage in that for sure.
Perfect. Nice. So working as a chef, or starting off, you have that story of cooking in the woods over an open fire to cooking in large kitchens and stuff like that. So I guess my question is when you're looking at your story of becoming a chef, what first inspired you? Was it like when you were younger, did you enjoy, prior to cooking outside, did you enjoy like making certain dishes with your family?
I
Really, what
loved
brought you
watching
there?
cooking shows. I
Yeah.
loved watching cooking shows for sure. That's when I remember it all started. I definitely loved it. long before I even got into the kitchen or knew I had a love for it. I loved watching culinary shows. But the path was, I never excelled in school. I mean, it's as simple as that. And I was the opposite of excelling in school. It's not as though I was failing, but I never applied myself because I never really found anything that I loved to learn about until I went to culinary school. Chef Michael Smith, a Canadian icon chef, said on my show a couple years ago that he never received his first A until he went to culinary school, and we had such a laugh about it because I thought to myself, and I often now repeat those words because it's so true. I never excelled at anything until I said, I'm done here at York University in Toronto. I'm
Hmm.
2 credits shy of getting my BA. I'm moving to Florida. I'm moving in with my grandmother and I'm going to culinary school. And I started receiving A's. And
Hmm.
I knew that, right there and then I wanted to be a cook. I wanted to cook for a living. I didn't know what it was to be a chef yet, but I knew I wanted to cook.
Yeah. No, that's phenomenal. And really, that's not an uncommon story. You find something that you're passionate about and it drives you and you want to learn more about it. You want to immerse yourself in that. And, you know, uh, talking to friends that discovered that passion in different ways, including myself, like I started off as an apprentice carpenter and I did that out of school, and finding those different areas that you excel in and then linking those different areas to new things that you want to connect into. That's the whole part.
And
Life's a
now
journey.
in 2026, I would also say that it's acceptable because it's such a gig economy. It's
Yeah.
acceptable to be doing multiple things, to have a full-time gig and something that subsidizes your income, on the side. It
Yeah.
certainly is something people are, in tune with subsequent to the pandemic, but it's in 2026, it's a gig community. It's a gig economy. I don't know one person that does only one thing to generate
No.
an income.
No, that's a very, I guess, more of an old school concept nowadays. And with different platforms where people can find work and to post their skills online and Instagram, all that kind of great stuff, where people are able to connect with people that I think before it was hard to establish those relationships. And now it's easier than ever to really find different areas to talk to people and to learn about different things. I was working on a business before. It was called G'day, and basically what we would do is we would connect local farmers and producers with people that were looking to buy farm direct food. And there was, no shortage of that, but just different mediums of finding people to work with and finding people to do business with. Oh, that's awesome. So I guess in your kitchen, when you're looking at versatile things or different things that people could bring into their kitchen, kind of a fun segue. What's stuff that you think where maybe you've got a smaller space, maybe you're cooking in a condo, maybe you're cooking in an apartment, that different articles or different things you could add in that could really help elevate your cooking experience that don't take up a ton of space and a bunch of room?
Yeah, I mean, I believe wholeheartedly in setting yourself up for success.
Yeah.
I'll give you a perfect example. I have an event this weekend and I received a delivery yesterday of meat.
Mhm.
And I received, I'm going to guess it was probably 8 pounds of short ribs. And, I need some of that, a fraction of it for my event on Saturday night.
Mm.
But I'm making the whole thing because I'm going to pick the meat from the bone and I'm going to
Mm.
cool it to room temperature and then freeze it in usable portion sizes, 2 pounds per, whatever that is. And that's setting myself up for success. So if I live in a small space, it's not a matter of ingredients, which I will for sure touch on, but it's more about creating the food stuff that you like en masse or in bulk, if I can call it that, making
Yeah.
multiple portions so that you can eat one, cool down, and then portion, 2 or 3 extra, whether that's you go to Costco where I happen to find some beautiful organic chickens this week. And I never go to Costco. I've never really been, but it was enlightening. And if you roast those 2 chickens and you break them down, and
Mhm.
you freeze them into portions with some roasted potatoes or some roasted veg, you've got, 6 or 7 meals ready to go on the fly.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
for me, it's about preparedness rather than ingredients. When it comes to ingredients, I call myself a patient before I'm a chef. So 12 years, I've struggled with psoriasis since I was 12 years old and autoimmune disease. And so 12 years ago, I was finally ready to make a change in my life and sought the help of a naturopath and subsequently removed gluten, dairy, and refined sugar from my diet. And as a result, healed my psoriasis. So now all of that, all of what I do, my new, shameless plug, but the newest book is called Will: How I Found My Health Through Food, available on Amazon. But it's all about my journey through pictures, stories, and recipes of finding my way through becoming gluten, dairy, and refined sugar free. So now,
Mhm.
when it comes to ingredients in my kitchen, you won't find gluten products. You won't find refined sugar products. You really don't find a whole lot of prepared foods or finished goods, if you will. They're mostly, my ingredients are raw ingredients. But I think, and I sort of live by, if you buy the best ingredient you can and you do very little to it, you'll end up with a very good product.
For sure. And it's like that's a amazing philosophy to live by because yeah, sometimes, that phrase "too many cooks in the kitchen" that can apply to the foods and the ingredients that you're putting into a dish, and it doesn't take a whole
Absolutely.
lot
That's
to make
actually a
something.
really nice analogy. I'm going to steal that because that's
Go for
actually
it.
really, really good. That's good.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's amazing. So, no, it's great to learn about your methodology and cooking philosophy. And that was I was gonna ask that was kind of one of the things I wanted to walk through was your book. Now, talking about your inspiration about what inspired you to write that book and your health journey. But I guess when people are reading through that will, how I found my health through food, what do you hope that people will take away from it? And if they're starting their journey or if they're later on in their journey realizing, what they're cooking, how they're cooking it, the food they're consuming.
The I have written 7 cookbooks,
Mhm.
and this is my 7th. And it's such a vast departure from what I've done in the past. First and foremost, I didn't work with a publisher. I've worked with a publisher for all of my previous cookbooks. This process was much longer, years in the making, because I was following my journey, but I had 100% creative freedom, which I
Mm,
loved. Right. And I've
yeah.
actually created a process which I'm launching to help people, self publish books. But it's been this journey of sort of following my path to health. And health is an interesting word because it ebbs and flows, right? To say that I healed my psoriasis, I did, but I certainly had flare ups. And then during the pandemic, I took a vaccine, and it basically flipped the switch to my autoimmune disease and landed me bedridden for a month. And it was just you know but but overall, finding better health through changing your diet made a lot of sense to me. But the premise for the book was, how can I create something that you spoke to it earlier, is complete with recipes that have two, three, four ingredients, right? People are turned off by recipes with 20 different ingredients. I am, everybody else is. But how can I create something that's not a cookbook, but a cookbook? And it's an amalgamation of stories that I wrote over a year of my life, which was very cathartic, following my journey with mental health and psoriasis and cannabis and just so many different things. And then it was so it was telling those stories, it was building out the recipes, and then it was taking the pictures, but having those pictures taken, each and every one, from my phone,
Wow.
and that I created myself, so it wasn't
Yeah.
professionally done. But I needed a proof of concept because, so many people are out there and wanting to publish a book because they feel like it's their the only thing that will give them validation or
Mhm.
credibility. And the truth is, you don't need it, but it is a wonderful business card to have. Each
Yeah.
and every guest that I cook for, this is my business card. I give them each a book, and it's something wonderful because not only do I remain on their tabletop and top of mind, but through this book, they're realizing that, shit, I can actually have ice cream. I can have granola. I can have
Yeah.
desserts, brownies. I can have chicken, steak. I can have all of the same familiar foods that I've always loved to eat, but with the ingredients that my body approves, that my
Yeah.
natural path approves of, that my body tolerates. So For me, this was kind of like this was my holy grail. This was my most personal work ever. But it is, if there's anything that people can take away, it's that you don't have to forego the food that you love to eat. You just have to
Mm.
change the inputs. You just change the ingredients.
Yeah, no, I remember that newsletter we did late 2025, and you shared that crumble recipe. And as I was looking through it, I was like, this is perfect. Oatmeal in the morning to little dessert or after dinner snack. And it's not complicated to make. It's a few ingredients and minimal prep time. So
And it's funny because most of my breakfasts are interchangeable with dinner, or with
who doesn't
dessert.
love that? Yeah.
Right. I mean, the
Yeah.
brownie has, if you choose, it's got avocado in it and cacao and almond flour and like just good
Yeah.
solid ingredients, right? So you can eat
Yep.
that for breakfast.
Oh, yeah. No, that's phenomenal. That's really cool. When you look at 2026, I guess maybe the trends you've seen so far, the different yeah, folks that are coming forward now within your space, the chefs, what gets you excited when you look at this new year in terms of culinary evolution and I guess maybe different areas that are unexplored or new and developing?
It's funny. I would say industry evolution rather than the culinary or food evolution. Certainly, I definitely see an opportunity for what I do for a living, right? I navigate with ease any dietary restrictions or food preferences. There's way more people in 2026 than there were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago who are struggling navigating dietary restrictions. I know because I speak to them every day. I speak to somebody every day that's struggling with something. And so I love the fact that I can create these very curated culinary experiences for people where they don't have to worry about dietary restrictions or cross contaminations, different story, but certainly dietary restrictions. So I love that. But the culinary world, the evolution of the culinary world, and what I've seen most now is most of my good friends in this space are not chefs of restaurants anymore. And I'm the elder statesman, right? I just turned 54 years old. Clearly, I just turned 54, but most of my friends in this space are 15, 10, 15, 20 years younger than me, and so many of them are not putting on their whites every day and going into a kitchen.
Hmm.
Many are becoming which is one aspect of my world, which is being a private chef and bringing either a curated experience to someone through Saturday is 7 courses for a group of 17 or 15 women, and 5 of them are pregnant, so we're navigating some different offerings there, and again, that's easy for me. 2 of my first cookbooks were baby food books, so like I
Yeah.
love navigating this stuff, right? So for me, like, that's what I'm seeing more than anything, is this acceptance in the culinary world for non-restaurant chefs, that my friends are seeing that they don't have to make a living by putting on their whites and working 15 hours a day on their feet
Yeah.
in a fast-paced environment, that you can create content or you can consult for restaurants. And so there's that's kind of where I see this amazing evolution. And on the other side, in the restaurant space, or period across the board, is the time of the angry chef is done.
Mm.
Like, people who treat others without kindness and respect are done. Your time is limited in this space,
Yeah.
and you will be asked to leave once people get a whiff of, not treating people well. It's just the
Yeah.
way it is.
No, and that really ties well back to the gig economy piece that we are talking about before, and just kind of that freedom that comes with being able to tell your story to a wide audience yourself, and with your book, just bringing everything together yourself, and the freedom that comes with that, and the creative ability that you can just, if you feel like doing something a certain way, you're not tied to X. You can just
That's
kind of
right.
run with it as you do so please. Oh, that's awesome. No, that's great. That's great. That's great. When it comes down to your private events for folks that are like looking to get into touch with you and learn more about how do I work with Jordan? How are you looking for 2026? Are there any is there still availability?
Well, it's great question. So the Chef Jordan Wagman brand has a few different revenue streams. One is
Yeah.
certainly private events, but that
Yep.
is mostly, from April to October. But I'm a part of very proudly Dimensions Retreats. I'm the culinary director there, and that's in Algonquin Highlands. That's on Maple Lake. So all of the food there is mine. I love having, bricks and mortar. I'm also very involved with, you know, I'm trying to really focus my attention. It's the same thing that happened when I moved from California to Colorado. It's just big fish, small pond. There's not a lot of people swimming in the pond in Northern Ontario, which creates a competitive advantage for me. So I'm
Mhm.
trying to work with different bricks and mortar establishments as well, not only create private events. I'm really trying to establish myself as a culinary brand and offering in Muskoka that does private events, where
Mhm.
you can find all of these offerings on my website, jordanwagman.com. But you can always DM me on any social media platform, or, Chef Jordan at jordanwagman.com is my email. But, I'm available to guide. I'm available to help. I'm available to bring value. And it doesn't always mean that someone has to spend money with me. That's the thing that I'm often sort of telling people is, obviously I'm going to create in 2026 some ways that people can continue interacting with me online, and, creating those different sort of circles, as, or communities as we referred to them earlier. But, I just want to work with people. I want to help people that are looking to change their life through food. And, there's so many people now who struggle with an autoimmune disease. And that is, I just it's all about legacy. So for
Mhm.
me, it's all about legacy. It's how you treat people and how you positively impact people and how you're remembered. That is how you will be remembered. Again, if somebody wants to work with me, you can find me everywhere on social media.
Yeah, no, you've got a great digital presence. Just looking through your website, I'm a big fan of the layout, the design, and then also on your Instagram page, you really do a great job of highlighting, your messaging, but also some really great recipes. And I know that that's where I found that the video of the crumble recipe that you shared, and it just makes things less intimidating for people to try to tackle on their own when they see things like that being made and prepared. But no, that's awesome. I guess if you were to, kind of closing off the conversation, but when you look at final messages or things like that that you'd love to share with people, is there anything that you'd love to highlight?
Changing your diet is difficult. Changing your diet is scary. Changing your diet, your habits, things that you've done for decades theoretically, is
Yeah.
really daunting. But when you remove the scary from the equation and you realize that it's the crumble that we're talking about is combining almond flour and maple syrup and putting it into the oven,
So
anybody can do that. And
exactly.
it's all technique. And so
Yep.
that's where I come in is, let me help you. If you're struggling with your diet, if you're struggling with your health, I don't play a doctor on TV. I'm not a dietitian. I can just tell you that I can work with your doctor. I can work with your dietitian, but I can also tell you, logic dictates. We all struggle with gut health, and we are what we eat. So if I can help anyone, if I can obviously bring value by creating a great experience or whatever that looks like, but if I can help you, if I can bring value to your life and better your quality of life through changing of diet, let me show you how it doesn't have to be difficult. Let me show you how it can actually be relatively enjoyable. And I'll finish on this if you don't mind. I mentioned Dimensions, and Dimensions is a very special place. One of our one of our retreats that we offer is for veterans, and it's a 10-day veteran retreat. And what gives me such incredible pride is the fact that not only are they there working through, their, whatever it is that it's challenging them mentally, but they're also working through, because there's this mind body connection, they're also working things through with their body. And to realize, and I won't paint everyone with the same brush, but I will say that the number of people, the number of comments, the amount of feedback we've received through this 10-day retreat, and how someone feels better inside because they've changed the ingredients, those inputs. They're no longer eating refined sugar. They're no
Yeah.
longer eating the things that inflame their insides, that they realize, holy smokes, wow, like I feel good for the first time. I'm not going to the
Yeah.
bathroom 14 times in a day or whatever that looks like. And truly, like, people that struggle with gut health, they know what I'm talking about. And
Hmm.
so I take really great pride in the fact that people still eat the ice cream. It's just made with cashews. They eat breakfast every morning. It's just we don't put white flour in our bread. It's buckwheat bread. And so it's just being a part of that journey is really special. So if I can be a part of your journey, let me know.
No, that's amazing. And no, I really appreciate you sharing that, Jordan. And when you look at home building, it's easy enough to say, listen, something's off by a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there. But all of those things add up. And, you find yourself off by a quarter of an inch all of a sudden, and then you find yourself off by a foot. And the same thing can probably be applied to these different areas that you're talking about, where these little things that seem kind of small and overlooked, when you start to add them all together, that's the difference between a wall being plumb and square and it not being plumb and square. So
And
that's
you
really
just
cool.
hit the nail on the head with the carpentry analogy or, pun, but like,
Yeah.
it when you realize that I mentioned earlier how daunting it can be to change your diet. But if
Mhm.
you only make this one change tomorrow, instead of putting sugar in your coffee, put maple syrup in your coffee. Make that one change.
Yeah.
Then the next day, make another change. And the next day, make another change. And so one plus one plus one. You don't have to make wholesale changes, but incremental change plus incremental change leads over time to wholesale changes.
Yep. Compound interest.
That's right.
Exactly.
100%.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Jordan, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast. What I'll do is I'll put all of your details in the Spotify notes or the notes in the podcast below so
Great.
folks can find you quick and easy. Thank you, sir.
Perfect. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Have a great day. Bye
You
bye.
too.